Into the December version of TV Toastmasters. I'm the president of TV Toastmasters, Rick Davis, and I'm going to be your Toastmaster today. Along those lines, then, I would like to introduce our word power person for today, Carol Kormelink, who is the Loop Division Governor. Carol.
Mr. President and Toastmaster, our word of the day is triumph. Triumph is the action or fact, that was too fast, the action or fact of being victorious, a conquest, a distinguished success or achievement, the exultation of victory, joy over success, elation or exultant gladness. We will triumph over evil. Triumph. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Carol. Triumph. So we're going to try to use triumph in our table topics today. To deliver a joke for a little bit of levity, Steve Ehrenholtz. Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and to our guests that are watching in today. I have a couple of jokes here I'm going to share with you, and we'll see if we can triumph over boredom. Sherlock Holmes and Watson were camping in the forest. They had gone to bed and were lying beneath the sky. Holmes said, "Watson, look up. What do you see?" "I see thousands of stars." "And what does that mean to you?" Holmes asked. "I suppose it means that all of the planets in the universe, we are truly fortunate to be here on Earth. We are small in God's eyes, but should struggle every day to be worthy of our blessings. In a meteorological sense, it means we'll have a sunny day tomorrow. What does it mean to you, Holmes?" "To me, it means someone stole our tent." Then there was the one about the little boy who was sent to get water from the well by his grandmother. One day, Grandma sent grandson Johnny down to the water hole to get some water for cooking dinner. As he was dipping the bucket in, he saw two big eyes looking back at him. He dropped the bucket and hightailed it for Grandma's kitchen. "Now where's my bucket and water?" Grandma asked Johnny. "I can't get any water from that water hole, Grandma," cried Johnny. "There's a big old alligator down there." "Now don't you mind that old alligator, Johnny. He's been there for a few years now, and he's never hurt no one. Why, he's probably as scared of you as you are of him." "Well, Grandma," said Johnny, "if he's as scared of me as I am of him, then that water ain't fit to drink." Mr. Toastmaster?
Thank you, Steve. A real triumph for humor. All right, the next portion of our meeting has to do with impromptu speaking, and to lead us in impromptu speaking today is Jerome Manigan.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. We have moved into that time of the year that I term the holiday corridor. Those end of the year celebrations which lead to the new year. I have selected as today's table topics 3 of those holidays: Veterans Day, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. Armistice Day, now known as Veterans Day, received its name in America in 1926 through a congressional resolution. It became a national holiday 12 years later by similar congressional action. If the idealistic hope had been realized that World War I was the war to end all wars, November the 11th might still be called Armistice Day. But only a few years After the holiday was proclaimed, war broke out in Europe. 16.5 million Americans took part. 407,000 of them died in service. More than 292,000 in battle. Nellye, in your opinion, what is the most appropriate way to honor those who gave their lives to protect our freedom?
Thank you, Mr. Tabletopics Master. Well, to me, it's wonderful to have parades, and we should have the flag flying at all times. And it's good to be patriotic at special occasions. But the best way we can honor them is to remember what they did for us, to appreciate what they bought for us with their lives, and one is the right to vote. Most people don't even turn out to vote. They stay home. It doesn't matter to me, but it does. It affects the future of the world. I think the best way we can honor them would be to work unceasingly, everyone, for world peace, to realize all people of the world are basically the same. We all have the same needs, the same wants. Our religion may be different, our race may be different. We have differences, but we have so much more in common. And if we could just work and try to make that dream come true, our world would be an absolute paradise on earth.
Thank you, Nellye. In 1789, George Washington issued a Thanksgiving proclamation. I'm not going to read the entire proclamation to you. I have made copies for you. I'd like for you to take those with you, read them, share them with others. I would like to read to you excerpts from the proclamation. It's a very moving piece of writing, I think. Whereas it is the duty of all nations to acknowledge the providence of Almighty God, to obey His will, to be grateful for His benefits, and humbly to implore His protection and favor. And whereas both houses of Congress have, by their joint committee, requested me to recommend to the people of the United States a day of public thanksgiving and prayer. So reads the first paragraph of the 1789 Thanksgiving Proclamation. Thanksgiving celebrations are a mixture of Pilgrim traditions, Native American traditions, and new ones. People eat turkey, pumpkin pie, and cranberries, and gather together to give thanks. People also have big parades and watch football games. Steve, would you tell us about the menu for Thanksgiving dinner at your home?
Thank you, Mr. Tabletopics Master, fellow Toastmasters, and to our guests watching in. The Thanksgiving menu at our home. Well, this year we're going to go and spend Thanksgiving with my family, which means we will have a collective dinner. We will have turkey. I suspect my brother-in-law will be grilling it, and that turns out to be a pretty good way to fix a turkey. I can't do it myself, but he does a good job. My mother will make some of her homemade rolls. She'll make them from scratch the night before and let them raise and bake. That always smells wonderful when it's being made. We'll have mashed potatoes, pumpkin pie, probably an apple cake to go with it. Of course, in my family, we tend to look at the low-fat menu. So even though we'll have plenty to eat, it won't be something that you'll walk away feeling like this. And we do need to realize that we're very fortunate. There are a lot of people who Thanksgiving will be very meager as far as what they will have for their menu. So we should remember that if we're blessed abundantly, we also should share it with those who aren't so fortunate. Mr. Tabletopics Master?
Thank you very much. All of the holidays during this time of the year speak to peace and goodwill and joyful news. Rick Davis, would you please explain to us what you feel is the best way to create true brotherhood among all people?
Well, thank you, Jerome. True brotherhood among all people. That's an easy one. No problems. I think that the way to create true brotherhood among all people, I think the best way to do that is for everyone to know more about other people. And I think it's more difficult to hate someone when you know a lot about them, when you are familiar with them, when you're a neighbor to them, when you consider yourself to be a friend to those people. And I think that one of the problems that we in the United States have is that we sort of tend to be very internal. We tend to worry about our internal problems. We tend to worry about how things are affecting the United States and how they're affecting us as Americans. I think that it would be very useful if there was a way to learn about other cultures and to learn about other peoples and to start to lower the level of fear that we have as a country, as a people. I think that we need to become more international. I know that one of our members is a member of the United Nations Council, and he's very much involved in learning about other countries and presenting the other cultures as a way of becoming a more peaceful world. And that's probably the way that we need to go. We need to learn how other people react to us as Americans and how we can react in a more peaceful manner to other countries. So I guess that would be my way of doing it, is to try to get us to learn more about other people. Mr. Tabletopics Master?
Thank you very much. Sheila, would you tell us how your family celebrates Christmas?
Well, over the years, our family has celebrated Christmas in a variety of ways, obviously with presents. But more than anything else, members of my family have acted as Santa Claus for poor children, have worked in the community on Christmas Day, have gathered up presents and food for families, have in general been very active in the community trying to decide what people need to get through the Christmas holidays. You know, the Christmas holidays are very stressful for a lot of people because they don't have enough money. Sometimes they have an extra job trying to get together just what they need for Christmas dinner and to keep the car going and to pay the rent. And when it comes time for Christmas, especially if they have children, they worry, will my child have the toy everybody else wants? Will my child have that extra pair of warm socks or a coat that he really needs? So Christmas is a very stressful time. So my family, having been poor in the past, now works to make it time less stressful for everyone in the community, especially those who are poor.
Thank you very much, Sheila. Although it had a late start, the American Christmas, because of its ancestry, rivals any other in richness and variety. Carol, would you please describe to us the Christmas decorations that will adorn your home?
Mr. Tabletopics Master, fellow Toastmasters, and our most welcome guest at home. The decorations that will adorn my home, one of the things I like to do is display all of the Christmas cards. So I have this sticky tape that you put on the wall, and then you put your cards on that. And so that's part of my decorations. We have the Christmas tree. We have with many presents under there. We have our Christmas is celebrated on Christmas Eve, where the family comes to my house. We have supper, then we go to church for the evening church service, and then we come back and open our gifts. Before we open the gifts, there's myself and 5 others, my husband, 5 others, my 2 grandchildren and son and daughter-in-law, and I write a love letter to them every year, telling them what they've meant to me that year, how important that is, and how much I love them. It's very touching. Sometimes I have to go through a tear or two, and they do too, but it's very important to let people know how important. So all the decorations and everything don't mean quite as much. It brings a festive air to the occasion, but it's not as important as letting people know that you love them. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. Through it all, we know that we will triumph over the demands of the holiday season. Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Jerome.
Mm-hmm.
Very challenging table topics today.
Thank you very much. And now for our next speaker, Stanley Glitchner.
Speaking in public doesn't have to be a death sentence. At Toastmasters, we can help you overcome your fears.
Nellye Bowen, and she's had a great history in environmental issues, and today we're going to talk about some of those issues. I know that you're very much interested in global warming, alternative fuel sources, different things like that. So I'd like to ask you a question, Nellye. Why, as a person living in Cincinnati, Ohio, should I be concerned about global warming? I know all about what's happening at the poles and all at the North Pole and the South Pole, all that sort of thing. But certainly, as a person in Cincinnati, Ohio, that doesn't affect me much, does it?
It certainly does. Global warming, which is produced by the buildup of greenhouse gases, is affecting every area of the world right now, and also the polar regions. It's affecting every species on the face of the earth. Global warming causes climate change, and the warmer the earth gets, the more violent the storms. And we've been having very violent storms. The weather will get wetter and wetter and wetter with floods. Other areas will have severe drought and starvation. At some areas, we'll have searing heat waves, and forest fires will be common. More violent hurricanes and tornadoes, which are already happening, will be taking place, and tropical diseases such as the West Nile virus and also malaria will be more widespread as the mosquitoes that spread those come northward because the climates are warmer. So yes, it affects you here in Cincinnati.
And in fact, we have seen West Nile virus appearing in Ohio and all throughout the Midwest, and this is all due to the changes in the climate?
Yes, it certainly is, because everything changes. As the weather gets warmer, things move northward for cooler weather. So it causes problems for us.
Explain to me about some of the alternatives. I know that one of the problems is that we're burning fossil fuels. We're producing carbon dioxide, which warms up the atmosphere. So what kind of other options are available? It seems to me that we're sort of tied as a culture. We're sort of tied to automobiles. We're sort of tied to heating our homes a certain way. What other possibilities are there?
There are a number of possibilities. Now they're working on fuel cells for cars. Now at the present time, those aren't perfect. They have more work to do on that. But on other things, we have a wide range of alternatives. There's solar power. There's hydroelectric power, which can be produced any place there's falling water. Another source is from landfills, biomass. It's methane, which can be used to produce fuel. When you produce fuel with it, when you use it for energy, it doesn't go up and into the atmosphere and contribute to global warming. We also have an old source, which is windmills, or now they're a little more up to date, but it's the same principle, using wind for power. But one of the best is also the oldest, and that's geothermal. Geothermal was used by the Romans, it was used in Pompeii, and all it requires is drilling into the earth. This can be done anywhere on the face of this earth. And when you drill down, you bring up water that's heated from the core of the earth. And when you use this, it's also, after it cools, it's sent back into the earth to reheat. None of this is going to cause pollution. It's never going to run out because it's constantly renewable. Coal and oil and the other sources that we're using now are finite. And within a period of 50 years, our oil will be gone. Our coal will be gone in 200 years. So our sources we're using now will soon be gone.
And can you explain to me why we're not currently using these sources? It seems like a reasonable thing to be using geothermal. I know that in Iceland they use geothermal quite regularly, but it doesn't seem to be anything that's really caught on in the United States.
No, it hasn't. And I believe the reason it hasn't is because there's more money right now in oil. And these will not be used until they're economically feasible. Germany has invested deep into wind power, and they made it profitable for companies to do this by giving them a discount, giving them a tax break. Well, if we will offer an incentive to companies, we can do this. And once you set these up, it's not something that you have to keep spending on. Once those, the turbines that we use for wind power, once they start, once you set them up, they're good for years and years. Once you drill the well for thermonuclear, it keeps producing. It'll never run out. These are clean sources.
Do you know how long it would take if we did decide to switch over to another alternative source of energy? How long it would take for the carbon dioxide to be cleaned out of the atmosphere so that the global warming would reverse?
It would take a long time, a very long time, because now the oceans are becoming filled with the carbon dioxide. They can still accept more, but they're going to reach a point of total saturation. And when they do, then the carbon dioxide that normally goes into the oceans will be coming back into the atmosphere, contributing to global warming. Also, another thing that's causing this is cutting down the rainforest, because the way we've handled this in the past, green plants take in carbon dioxide and give off oxygen. Well, now, as we cut down the rainforest, as we use more of the land for agriculture, not for green crops, but for raising livestock. When you do this, you don't have the plants to absorb the carbon dioxide. So it goes into the atmosphere.
Now, I've heard some people say that one of the things we need to do is to, rather than using gasoline, for example, to power our cars, they use alcohol, but that really wouldn't help, would it? Because alcohol gets converted into carbon dioxide when it burns, right?
You can use ethanol at the present time. You can use part ethanol and part gasoline. Now that does cut down on the emissions on the ethanol. And it's another thing they're using right now for fuel is willow. Farmers are planting a type of willow bush, which they're using now, along with the oil or coal, to produce electricity. There's a lot of sources out there. And if we make it economically feasible, we'll start using them.
What about something like hydrogen? I've heard a lot about hydrogen. And I guess that has to do with the fuel cells you were talking about.
It doesn't work perfectly yet. They're working on it, and it will be better as more research is spent on it. But at the present time, it has work still to be done.
Uh-huh. What kind of future does it hold if we, I guess, we need to change our ways, right? If we expect to have a good future. I was wondering if you could sort of, I know you have sort of a summary that you'd like to talk about as far as the future of our environment.
Well, we have actually 4 scenarios. Conservation is something that we should be doing now on a large scale. I know I recycle everything that I possibly can, which not only conserves those items, but it conserves energy that goes into making them. And that is one way that we can help. A lifestyle change is something else. Instead of driving, sometimes you can walk. Instead of going to work, there are more people telecommuting. So you don't have to go anyplace. You work from home. I did that. Carpooling, which people don't seem to want to do, but it works. It would help. And growing your own food. That will help. Living closer to work. Another thing is using the alternative fuels. That will make a big difference. But if we don't do this, or a combination of them, then there's a 4th alternative, and the 4th alternative is deprivation. We will do without. And you can. I mean, before, work was done by hard manual labor. Crops were plowed by using horses or oxen. When I was born in Kentucky, at that time they didn't have tractors. They used a horse to pull the plow. It'll work, but it's not what we want. There's better ways. But if we don't use the alternative fuels and clean up our atmosphere, we're also going to have other things. That's going to be severe drought, starvation, which comes with the drought like we've had in Africa, severe heat waves, people dying in that, severe flooding, and pestilence, which comes with this. So we have a future. It could be bright, and we could have a lot of the same things we have now. And as you get into it and improve it, it can be a lot better because we'll be doing it with clean fuel.
All right, Nellye, thank you very much, and we will certainly, it gives us something that we need to think about. Back to the regular meeting.
I'd like to begin tonight with a little joke. This guy, he's a farmer, and he says, hey, hello, sorry. But seriously, folks.
Speaking in public is no joke.
Farmer says, doctor says, chicken says.
For help, call Toastmasters, the public speaking support group.
The chicken.
Speaker is Sheila Mudd-Baker. She has a CTM, which is the Competent Toastmaster. She's a competent leader. She is a Advanced Toastmaster Bronze, and she's working on her Advanced Toastmaster Silver. She's a member of TV Toastmasters and Northern Hills Toastmasters, and she's currently employed as the Human Resources Manager for the Cincinnati Recreation Commission. In her spare time, she volunteers to the community and does projects and agencies. The title of her speech today is Sharing the Wealth, and it is an editorial component from the television manual. And this is Sheila Mudd-Baker.
December is the season of giving. Last month, in November, a time for which we should have been quite thankful, the United Way received a much smaller set of donations than it had in previous years. This has bothered me quite a bit because the quality of life in Greater Cincinnati is in direct proportion to the money, time that we contribute to the community to make it better. Brother, can you spare a dime? Can you spare a dime a day? Well, can you even spare a minute? You know, Cincinnati is only going to get better when we take the time, the effort, and the money to make it so. Our religious backgrounds in Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, all ask the same thing, that we share what wealth we have with those who need it most. Politically and culturally, it is important to us to create a city that is safe for widows, children, for those who can't take care of themselves. And just for selfish reasons, we like to know that if we ever need help, there's someone there who can help us. So what can you do to make Cincinnati better? You have a lot of choices. Money's the obvious one. With a payroll deduction if you're working, by writing a check, by collecting money for charities, just buying Girl Scout cookies or Boy Scout popcorn, such simple things that we can do. In addition, if you are just doing something you really, really like, such as running, you can run and collect money for a charity. You can use your time if you don't have money. Read for the blind, bake a cake, give it to the neighborhood bake sale, volunteer to work at an annual event, play Santa Claus, spend a weekend building a community playground or a Habitat for Humanity house, pack Thanksgiving groceries at the free store. Or the more obvious one to all of us who are living through the holidays, clean out those closets. Contribute those extra clothes. Contribute them to Goodwill. Take that furniture down to the Cancer Society's Legacies furniture shop and make sure that someone gets good use of that furniture. In fact, get rid of that really ugly lamp that your mother-in-law gave you. It's important that you contribute to the society in which you live. You can contribute time, you can contribute money, or you can contribute stuff. But if life is going to work in direct commitment, direct proportion to the commitment we make and keep, your commitment to this society is what counts.
Sheila, for that interesting and informative editorial. The next portion of the meeting is the evaluation portion, and I'm going to be leading that as the general evaluator. The evaluator for Nellye Bowen's interview is Jerome Manigan. Jerome has been a Toastmaster since 1995, and he served as president of his club. He's also a competent leader in Advanced Toastmaster Bronze, and he is the area governor for Division L of Area 57. Jerome.
Thank you very much. Nellye, thank you for a very informative interview. I think that the information you provided was very interesting and I think very useful. The objectives of Nellye's presentation, which is number 2 from the Communicating on Television Advanced Leadership and Communication Program, had 5 objectives. They are: 1, to understand the dynamics of a television interview or talk show; 2, to prepare for the questions that may be asked of you during a television interview program; 3, to present a positive image on the television camera; 4, to appear as a guest on a simulated television talk show, and the time in which Nellye was to do all of this was 10 minutes plus or minus 30 seconds. There are a series of questions that I was expected to respond to for Nellye's presentation, which was titled Hot, Hotter, Hottest. How prepared was the speaker? What indicated this? I thought Nellye was very well prepared, and I cite as evidence the notes which you had prepared in advance. It was obvious to me that you were both knowledgeable and passionate about your topic. Question 2. How effectively did the speaker answer the questions? Did the speaker show enthusiasm? Yes, yes, yes. It is evident that the speaker is concerned about the issue of and factors contributing to global warming. Number 3, how did the speaker use a story or anecdote to illustrate or emphasize a point? Well, you suggested 4 scenarios, and I think that they were recycle, lifestyle change, carpooling, growing food. You talked about geothermal, you talked about Pompeii, so forth and so on. Did the speaker appear relaxed? Yes, I think you did. There was a momentary incident of nervousness, but I think that that's to be expected. Once you got into the topic, you were very comfortable. How did the speaker's appearance, clothing, makeup, etc.? Your appearance was not a distraction at all. How effective do you feel the speaker would have been on a real talk show? Very effective. Thank you, Nellye, for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you, Jerome. Our next evaluator is Steve Aaronholtz, who evaluated Sheila Mudbaker's editorial. Steve.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, our honored guests, and Sheila. Sheila's speech is the first one out of the Advanced Manual Communicating on Television. Her objectives were to effectively present an opinion or viewpoint in a short time, and also to simulate giving a presentation as part of a television broadcast. I have several things that I was asked to focus on as far as evaluating Sheila's presentation, and I'm going to go through these rather quickly. First of all, Sheila, I want to tell you that I was real pleased with your overall presentation. You engaged the camera. You were able to devote most of your eye contact to the camera. You had your notes, but you weren't overly reliant upon them. Your appearance, I feel, was very appropriate, and the overall tone that you had conveyed sincerity. Your point was that the reduction in giving that was demonstrated by the outcome of the United Fund possibly represents something that we need to be a bit more aware of. And your personal background that you spoke from as far as the things that people can do, you gave them several options, money, time, and also one of the things I really liked was when you were talking about cleaning out stuff. You had a change in your facial expression, which I really liked because it sort of conveyed this, you know, all that stuff you got that's piling up everywhere, and you might need it, but you haven't used it in 10 years. There's probably someone who really does need it and will get good use out of it. A couple of growth areas that I had just wanted to comment on briefly. I thought you may have leaned a little bit too far forward. Your posture was not quite as relaxed as I think it might have been. It would have made me a little more comfortable because I think you were just leaning a little bit forward. Other than that, I really didn't have a lot to comment on as far as growth areas. I did like your conclusion. I thought that one of the other things that was excellent was drawing upon the call that different faith expressions have to contributing to the betterment of our world and our fellow person's plight in life. So I think overall you achieved the objectives of this presentation, and I look forward to hearing your next one. Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Steve. To comment about our word usage and also to do the timers report is Carol Carmelink. Carol?
Mr. Toastmaster, I will do my reports together. That will make it easier for me to triumph over handling two jobs that take a lot of concentration for each one. I liked Jerome's use of knowledgeable and passionate when he talked about Nellye's speech. I thought that was good. We did very well with the ums and ahs today. We used the word triumph many times. Jerome used it. Almost everyone used it at some time. When Rick was the Toastmaster in the beginning, he just had one that I caught at that moment. I liked when Steve answered the vocal variety that he used. That was very good with his joke. His joke was, my word power was 30 seconds. Steve's joke was 1 minute and 50 seconds. The table topics, Nellye, was 55 seconds, and Jerome, to ask the question, was 1 minute and 30 seconds. Steve, to answer the question, was 1 minute and 23 seconds, and to ask the question was 1 minute and 35 seconds. And Rick, for his answer, was 1 minute and 46 seconds, and it only took 20 seconds to ask the question. On Sheila's reply was 1 minute and 16 seconds, and it took 6 seconds to ask that question. And on my reply, I was 1 minute and 33 seconds, and it took 20 seconds to ask the question. During the talk show host guest segment, Rick had several uhs. He had several and uhs and several ums. Nellye had several uhs. She had one little that was not noticeable if you weren't paying attention, and she had one big So I always say, you can think in silence, keep your mouth shut, and think in silence. You don't have to fill the air with uhs and ums. Nellye talked about power. I would like to point out the power. Carrie Douglas, who is a former district governor 2 years ago. She is running as a candidate for an international director, and her theme is power, positive opportunities with exceptional results. So I was thinking of that as you were talking about power, Nellye. I was thinking about Carrie and running for international office. I think I have covered everything that I had on my paper to cover. And we will triumph over the rest of the meeting here. Mr. Toastmaster.
Yes, I had a triumph one time, and it was you just had to replace the points like every 1,000 miles. It was just a real problem. All right, closing comments. I think we had a great meeting today. It was a small group, but it was an enthusiastic group. Everyone was involved. Everybody had great comments on their table topics. Jerome has a great number of table topics that he presented. I thought those were wonderful questions. Carol did a great job with her evaluation. She never lets anybody get away with anything. Our next meeting is Monday, December 2nd, and we will take some time after the taping to go through and try to fill some slots there. And then the next meeting that's televised is Saturday, December 21st at 9:30. So everyone is encouraged to sign up for that. And we also are interested in having any guests that would like to come to that. I'd like to thank you all for coming this morning, and I would like to thank Steve for handling the camera. That's always a real challenge to do that, plus other jobs, and he did a great job today. So thank you all for coming, and we will see you next time.